So here is our long overdue heart to heart. I've been thinking about you for a while, ever since you kindly said that you would be interested in doing a heart to heart and in supporting some of my work, and just being open to having an exchange of some kind. And I admit that it took me a really long time to reach out to you, because I've been kind of like working through and pushing through like questions of self-worth when it comes to this project, when it comes to actually just kind of sending a video to somebody and inviting them to join in, even though I'm really trying to do this as intuitively as possible without necessarily like a strict agenda. I love being able to just kind of trust the heart in this and just see what needs to be expressed or what I feel like expressing in the moment. But at the same time, not having that strict agenda, not having like a specific set of questions that I'm coming in asking people, makes it a little bit hard to feel like I have a proper like objective and a proper like motivation or excuse for reaching out to people. But at the same time, like I also don't want that to be wrong. At the same time, I want to allow myself to be in this more like feminine energy of just like trusting that I can do this and trusting that it doesn't need to be so planned out and really like structured and straightforward. So it's kind of like this thing that I have trouble with and that I'm working through, on top of like trusting myself to reach out to people who feel like they're way ahead in the game compared to me. And like you're one of those people. Like it's taken me a lot of practice and time to kind of finally work up the courage to send this to you, and also just like feel like I'm allowed to and that I'm ready to, even though like it's been months now since you said that you were okay with doing it. So it's interesting. I think about that time that I first invited you and like where I'm at now, and I feel like so much has already kind of changed, and I feel much more confident and comfortable reaching out to you now. It's interesting. It'll be almost a year since we first came into each other's lives virtually through taking a business course together. And I guess I just wanted to take a moment to first express to you like how much it has meant to me to be able to work with you in that way. We worked together for a few months, and your work around ritual and around, for me, like what comes up is this idea of a kind of like a shaman kind of approach to things. This connection with nature really inspires me and means a lot to me. The time that I worked with you was really at a critical time for me, actually, in terms of starting to get my priorities straight, really starting to set up practices and rituals for myself for the first time. You know, it's something that I've been working through by myself for a few years now, but just having that support with you and being able to hear about how you do things and getting these new ideas really, really was exactly what I needed. And it came at a really perfect time as I was actually struggling through some like big and deep things through like the fall and this past winter. And I often think of you whenever I'm thinking about like rituals that I'm setting up or practices that I'm putting in place in terms of the seasons and recognizing seasons, inner and outer seasons. And I'm just kind of wondering if you want to share a little bit about how that's going for you. I'm wondering like where your work is at nowadays with that. If you've been working with other people as you worked with me, if new things have come up in your own practice, if you've learned like some new like surprising things in this past year since we started that business class together, if you're feeling good and on track. I guess I'm kind of just checking in with you, but in this heart-to-heart format to see where you're at. Because I know that like the fall is coming up again soon, and the fall for me, I think, is a really, really critical time where I need to put these practices that we've talked about in place so that I don't try to continue working and running as I was working in the summer, where in the summer I have a lot more energy and I have like all this creative juice to kind of burn and to work with. In the fall, I know that I want to keep up that pace because it's the more accepted, or it's the pace that we want in this really like fast driven, like create kind of world. Pumping things out, right? And so I want to keep up with that because it feels like productive, it feels like what I should be doing. But at the same time, I know in the fall, and I've like had to learn the hard way, that I need to like be slowing down, and I need to start putting other things into practice and like feeling more into what is needed for me and what's going on with the seasons, with the days getting shorter, and just actually paying attention to these kinds of things and working more in flow and in harmony with that. So maybe if you want to, at this point, as I kind of say to everybody, there's no right or wrong for this. You can just kind of send a video message back anytime that feels right for you. I believe in timing. And share what this brings up for you. And I'd also really like to take this opportunity to hear a little bit more of your journey, actually, because I don't think we ever had a time to really sit down and talk about that, with like how you've gotten to where you're at today. And I know that this is a really open-ended kind of question, but again, you can go wherever you want with this and just trust your heart to be expressing the right thing at the right time. But if you want to give us a little bit of an idea of how you got to be doing this kind of work, tell us a little bit about the work you're actually doing and what motivated you to start doing this kind of work. What sparked you? Like, what keeps you going in this as well? I think about your connection to animals. I always think about, I'm going to share one of your stories, and I hope that that's okay, but it's just so beautiful and cute, and I just think about it all the time, is like the offerings that you give when you go on a hike, when you bring a little bit of extra water for a plant, and things like that, I think are just wonderful and really inspiring to me. So if you want to share a little bit of those little pieces of like rituals or things that you do, I would love to just hear you expressing from the heart and sharing for a little bit of inspiration as I continue to put different rituals and practices into place for myself, and to bring anybody who might be watching into like the awareness of this powerful tool and thing that we can do for ourselves, and how it can be quite magical and add like this layer of meaning to our lives that a lot of us, I think, are looking for.
Hello. It is really good to see your face, and I miss seeing your face. It was so nice when we were meeting on our video calls, when you were helping me create my package and we were kind of working together. I'm so thrilled to see you launching into these heart-to-hearts and, you know, forging forward with this project, which I know has meant a lot to you. And, you know, when we were meeting on video calls, we were really focusing on me and creating my package, and I'm so grateful for that. I guess I never got all the details about your project and what you're creating here. So I'm really grateful to be a part of it and to be able to contribute and have this heart-to-heart with you, because, well, for so many reasons. For one, because you know, are a meaningful and cherished person in my life, even though we've only known each other via technology and we're on like opposite sides of the world. Our friendship really does mean a lot to me, and the support that you provided for me after our course has meant so much to me. So, you know, there's that, but I'm also glad to participate in this heart-to-heart and in your your baby because I'm learning more about it as I go. I'm, following and discovering, like, what's it all for and how does it look, and just the energy and that felt sense, that softness with which you put it out in the world. So it's been really neat, really cool to see you continuing to build this and continuing to put some energy into it, and I guess progressively putting it out there more and more is what I'm seeing. It's become less of a secret and more of a, like, yeah, this is me, this is something that I offer the world. So I really wanted to congratulate you on that, and absolutely, I want to support you any way that I can. So let me see. I'm still working my day job, which is in a mental health field, and I'm still feeling just a little burnt out with it. Maybe less burnt out these days and more just kind of done with it. Not as inspired as I would like to feel in my life. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming. Sometimes it's kind of it just puts a certain filter on the world that can make things seem more challenging, or I see a lot of suffering in my day job, so that's a lot. And I think because I'm a really sensitive, intuitive person, like maybe more than I ever gave myself credit for before or acknowledged before. I think it does have an impact on me for that reason. I was just less aware when I was younger about how sensitive I am and about how intuitive I am, especially how intuitive I am. I only learned that in like recently. So working my day job's been hard for that reason. However, I have set up my online practice, or my like video call practice, Physis Wellness, and with your help and through that business course that we took. And that's been, I loved it so much. I loved recreating it. I loved recreating my website, revamping my website. And it is so good to do things in a way that is more aligned with my values, bringing in some like old world kind of practical earthy magic, bringing in lots of ritual. That's all been really, really good. However, I don't have clients rolling in the door, and do you know what? Like, I'm working with 2 clients right now. I am at a point where they're, full paying clients, and that's really wonderful. And I love them dearly. Everybody I work with, I just adore them. However, I've realized that I wouldn't want to work with many more than 2 or 3 at a time. I'm not sure I can put my finger on why. I think it's just, again, the energetics. Energetically, just what it requires of me, what it takes for me to do therapy with someone in a way that is really heartfelt and meaningful. So the funny thing is that as soon as my website was launched for my Physis Wellness practice, instead of marketing myself much, I did a little, but instead of marketing myself much, I actually started focusing on like new websites, like I wanted to create a different business, and I wanted to make a website for it. You're gonna laugh at this, but I think it's funny. I laugh at myself anyway. I became obsessed, a little obsessed with bonsais. I was learning all about how to create a bonsai, a little bit about the history of bonsai. I purchased a few little trees and shrubs and created bonsais. And so there was like a moment in time, like literally a 2-week period where I was like, I'm gonna create a bonsai business. And I knew that I wanted to be marketing and launching Physis Wellness, so I was like using this self-talk to say like, do not make a bonsai website, Lynn. Do not make a bonsai website. Do not make a bonsai website, because that's all I wanted to do. So through having actually a heart-to-heart conversation with another friend, her reflections really helped me to realize that what I want to do is create. And I've always been a creative person, and that's maybe been stifled in the past few years, like through university and doing my master's, and then moving into like clinical mental health, where I started. Really stifled the creativity and didn't leave a lot of time or energy for it. So yeah, it was really helpful to realize I don't actually want to create a bonsai business. I'm like way over that now, but I want to create. I realized that I want to create. And so that has led me to launching Physis Publishing, which is a web design and graphic design business. So creating and building websites for people, designing logos, doing branding, doing a little bit of online business coaching, because I have things to share. I've realized I've learned so much along my journey, that I can help people to some extent anyway, like with setting up email lists, email autoresponders, email marketing, and also courses, because I created some online courses for a previous iteration of Physis Wellness. They're still available, but they're maybe just not, they're ecotherapy, but they're not like fully aligned with like the more witchy part of myself. But anyway, I put a lot of heart and soul into creating these online courses, so that's another thing that I'll be able to help others with. It's been so liberating, I guess, to come to this realization that I want to work in a more creative capacity, and to admit that to myself. And a big part of it is like to allow myself to want that and pursue it, even though I did this whole master's degree in psychology. It feels like I'm not throwing it away, but definitely not using it in the way that I planned to when I first enrolled. So, however, it's really been liberating to give myself permission to be like, you know what, I don't really want to do that anymore. So I will still run Physis Wellness and like the package that we created together, but you know, I only really want to work with one client, or sorry, like 1 to 3 clients at a time, so that I can really show up with energy for it, and you know, in that healing, in that healer capacity, without tiring myself out or without drawing too deeply from that well. And then creating websites, creating logos, branding, all that good stuff. So what was really funny, Amanda, is that when I started telling people, I really did it in a like, this might sound like it's coming out of left field, but I'm gonna design websites. And then I would, you know, like reassure them it's actually something I've been doing for like 20 years, just never for other people. So what was really interesting is the response. And I think it feels like universal, like it feels like kind of the response or the support from the universe, because everyone that I told about Physis Publishing and the web design, the response was like immediately positive and supportive, and enthusiastically positive and supportive. And honestly, I didn't get that a lot launching my therapy practice. And I think, you know, there may be many reasons for that. It may be that my own passion wasn't shining through as strongly as it is for web design. But it also may be that a lot of people have a bit of discomfort around counseling and mental health. And when I would tell people about it, they would kind of be like, oh, okay, I'll keep it in mind. But when I tell people about the web design, they're like, cool, I know somebody, I'll put you in touch, or like, yay. You know, when I told my mom, who, and we've talked about this, I've had this conversation with her, she often worries about my choices because she only wants the best for me, and therefore her responses to my like latest endeavor or like my latest inspiration, her responses are not always as supportive as I would like them to be. She can be a bit of a naysayer when she's like, where did that come from? And when I told her about web design, her response was like, yeah, good, I'm glad to hear it, because you were always such a creative person. And that really meant a lot to me, feeling it right now. It meant so much to me to receive all of these like enthusiastic, positive, supportive responses, but especially in, you know, from sources where usually I will get maybe a little more like questioning or challenging about why or how am I going to do that or whatever. So yeah, it's just felt really good. The day that I decided to go for it, I was walking along thinking about it, and I looked down and there was a $10 bill on the ground. Like, you know, not a penny, not a dollar, but a $10 bill. So I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder if that's also a supportive sign. And I have my first client already, so I'm really excited about that. So I'm just like, I've done this for myself, but I just have to put all of these processes together that involve working with someone else and billing for my services and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that is the answer to your question, how is my work going? You know, it's funny to hear that you know, think of me as someone who's way ahead of you, because I don't feel that way. But it's good for me. Like, it's good to hear that from somebody, because it's just like a perspective shift in how confident one can be or not be in this world. I guess what I'm saying is that many of us could crank up our, you know, confidence level a whole lot in how we present ourselves and how comfortable we are with who we are. I think that those self-doubts that we run can really paint an inaccurate picture for ourselves of who we are. So, you know, I run all kinds of self-doubt all the time, and sometimes feel like an imposter, and I try to be integral in how I put myself out there. Like, I try not to present myself in social media as like uber successful, or, you know, raking in the dough or anything like that. Unless it were to become true, it's not something that I'm going to try to project out there falsely. But, you know, I guess we all do filter what we say and what we put out there, as perhaps we should. And so I try not to put too much of my self-doubt out there. I try not to share too much negativity, although I do share a lot about the state of the environment and the world. And I'm trying to remain positive about that as well. It's hard sometimes. So anyway, it's just not funny to hear, but I guess a little surprising, or a little surprising to hear you know, why you hesitated a little bit, that you kind of perceive me as somebody who's well ahead of you in terms of the business world. And I just wanted to say that I've never really felt that way, but thank you for saying that, because it just allows me to see myself in that light for a moment, like to picture myself in that light and go, oh, huh, what an interesting image, what a shift in perspective from the self-doubt. So thank you for that. I got cut off a couple times until I realized my storage was full. In terms of the fall, I was just going to say that my practices are much to do with getting out in nature and really just taking time to like sense the changes that are happening and tune into the new smells and the changing of the leaves and the brisker air. And one thing, as you're aware, I'm a lot less resistant to fall and winter these days because I've learned the value of them. I've learned about their feminine nature and how in our society we're really only encouraged to always be productive and busy and all of those very masculine qualities. And so it's no wonder that we love the summertime and the long days and not so much the wintertime. But I've learned now to like really slow down in the winter, to go to bed early, get more rest, like allow for gestation, allow for some creative activities, and just allow for slowness and quietness. So that's made a big difference, I think, for me moving into fall and knowing that winter is coming. And I've just always been such a nature lover that I think like rediscovering animism was inevitable. I had these beliefs as a child about everything having a soul and everything having its own worth, its own intelligence, its own consciousness. And then I, got into school and high school and university, and of course, none of these things are really taught that way or looked at that way. In fact, you're supposed to be hyper objective, and I took all these courses in research methods and things like this. So it was only in my own discontent and a period of like real soul searching and like really significant burnout shortly after starting in clinical mental health, like working for the government. That I started soul searching, and through a few friends and a little bit of happenstance, I was led back into shamanic practices and learning about that from a local teacher, and starting to rediscover animism and these beliefs that I'd held as a child, and rediscovering the value of those beliefs, or like rediscovering the relevancy of those beliefs has been a big part of my journey. And it feeds me these days. It's really important in my life it's really important for me to exist in this world, to look at everything around me as having its own soul and its own consciousness. And that can be really difficult in this world, and with the suffering of the environment, and global warming and pollution and everything these days. It's, having animistic beliefs, it makes that even harder, makes that even more heartbreaking. I'm choking up as I'm saying that, because it gives me this deep, deep insight, or this deep like empathy into the suffering that's happening all around me, all around all of us in the natural world. So I guess what I'm saying is that it doesn't make things easier, but it makes things so much more meaningful, so much richer. It's like, it feels like purpose. It feels like also a sense of belonging, like seeing plants and animals and so much of nature all around me as having its own consciousness and its own soul is like, I'm never alone, you know, like it feels like company, it feels like family, it feels meaningful. There is a red balloon just flying up into the sky out my window right now. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, so it makes life more challenging in some ways and more heartbreaking, but also like so much more meaningful. Yeah. So that's, you know, that's a little about my journey, a little extra about my journey. Those animistic beliefs and the ecotherapy that I do in my therapy practice really are so much about my connection to the earth and plants and animals. And yeah, I will definitely do little things like, it's not necessarily that I bring like an extra, you know, gallon of water on a hike with me because I want to like water all the trees or anything like that, but I'm carrying a water bottle anyway, and if I can spare some, I will totally like dribble a little here and a little there, knowing that their like roots and the base of the trunk or whatever will soak it up, and in a really hot and dry period that can be I think helpful. It feels like it's helpful. It also feels, though, symbolically like honoring those plants and thanking them for their role in creating oxygen and stabilizing the, you know, the mountainside, the soil, keeping everything in place that way, providing me with shade. There are so many reasons to say thank you and to honor you know, like the trees and other beings in nature. So yeah, I'll do things like that. I also rescue things everywhere I go. I pulled a ladybug. I think it was a ladybug out of the ocean the other day from a dock. It was, I don't know how it landed in there, but it was kind of like, you know, trying to there was no way. I mean, it was far from anything. I'm not sure how it would have ever gotten out. So I like laid down on my stomach on the dock and reached out as far as I could and rescued this ladybug. Or there, you know, there was a baby crow. It had just come out of its nest and fallen right onto the road. It's fully feathered and it's like almost ready to go, but they're still so innocent and so helpless and so clueless. At that age that it was just sitting there on the road and cars were driving over it, like over top of it over and over again. These vehicles were like, and I was like, God, pulled over, put on my 4-way blinkers and like marched back up the road. Like, you know, people can go around me. I don't think it was dangerous. Like I was being careful, but just like scooped up this baby. And again, he was just helpless. Like he had no idea. I just scooped him up. He couldn't get away from me. He's not flighted yet, but his parents will continue to take care of him as long as he's not like literally getting run over. So just put him in the nearby garden. So I don't know. I just do things like that a lot. Like it feels like an honor. I guess I'm not like trying to talk myself up at all. Like it actually feels like a blessing and an honor for me to be able to help where I can or when I can. I get a lot out of it. Ritual is something I've brought into my therapy practice because it can be so helpful to enable us to feel our own power and to get in touch with our own power. Sometimes it's easy to feel helpless in this world, and there are practical things that we can all do. Pouring water on the tree, for example, in some ways that's practical, but in some ways it's also a ritual. It's a ritual of gratitude and thanks, and it's also a ritual of intention for well-being, intention for growth and thriving. So we can bring ritual into all sorts of areas of our life, and as long as what we are doing is infused with some meaning, then the sky's the limit, really, in the rituals that you can create. So I put together a little book, and it's a free book, and it's called The Handbook of Practical Magic. It has a lot of information about creating your own rituals, and then it has 10 of them as well that are kind of outlined, that people can, if they want to, they can learn a little bit more about ritual. One of my favorites is just a little bit of energy clearing, and I do that usually at my altar, which is in the background here, and I might light some incense or something. I work with some feathers. One of my favorites is my eagle feather. And so I will, light a little incense or a little Palo Santo, although we all have to be aware of overconsumption of things like Palo Santo, and Californian white sage is getting depleted. I just encourage people to be aware of that, and so then to choose carefully and choose wisely what they consume and what they choose. What you choose to work with might also have to do with your own heritage, whether you're, like Greek, Mediterranean, or like Russian, Siberian, or like Germanic, Celtic. There's various herbs and things that you can create, like a little smoking bundle with those herbs, and that is something that you, like, permission to work with that is in your bones through that cultural heritage of yours. But anyway, I will light a little incense or whatever it is that I'm working with, and then with a feather, it's basically about moving the air around yourself, and basically like brushing yourself off. Indigenous people here where I live use that term, brushing off, a little more, but it's also called smudging. And so the idea of it is that you are clearing the energy field that kind of exists all around the outside of your physical body. And at the same time, you imagine the cleansing happening throughout your body, throughout the inside, through bones and organs and cells, but also just on an energetic, like, soul level. And you can visualize like black smoke leaving, or you can visualize almost like sweeping away debris. And that is a beautiful practice that I like to do as needed. It's not that it happens every day, but that I do walk by my altar every day, and so sometimes I just notice that I feel heavy, and I might feel like I have a lot of energetic shrapnel. I might feel ungrounded, or like that kind of chaotic or disorganized feeling, and then doing a little bit of energy clearing in those moments will help me to feel so much brighter and lighter. It's like an up, and at the same time more grounded. It's like a balancing, a feeling of lifting, and a feeling of like grounding, growing your roots down deeper at the same time. It's really beautiful. The Handbook of Practical Magic for Mental Health, it can just help people to learn a little bit more about rituals. I just want to thank you so much Amanda, for inviting me to do this. Thankfully, because of technology, we can have this connection that we do, and I really cherish it. I just really appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate especially how uniquely this project is. You're not trying to be someone else. At least this is my observation, and you can take it or leave it. What I see is that you're not trying to be anybody else, and you're not trying to do something because you should, or because it's, I don't know, something that's trendy in the online business world or whatever. It's like this project feels really integral to you, and it feels really aligned with your energy and that soft authenticity that you have. So I just wanted to express that appreciation for you and for this creation of yours. And thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of it.
Hey, Lynn. I really wanted to thank you for your exchange with me. You're right. Like, it was really, really good to get to just have this like face exchange. There's something that I really like about, I mean, of course, live conversations are great, but I love getting to just hear people speak without worrying about like having to like I don't know, like show that I'm listening. There's something kind of freeing in being able to just kind of listen without being seen. It's weird. I feel like it allows me to like witness what the person is saying better, and if I miss something, because suddenly I'm like off down a rabbit hole on one of the things that you said, I like that I can kind of go back or pause or do things like that. And there's something that I feel is special about it as well, because like in the conversations that we've had, it's felt like, I mean, it's because of the nature of our conversations as well. Like we were working on a project together, and I just felt like, I was taking up a lot more space. So it was really nice to get to just hear you speak uninterrupted on your own journey, on the things that you've been going through, what's been coming up for you. Super interesting, and gives me a lot of inspiration for my own path in terms of like really feeling into like what we're doing, instead of just being like, oh, I started this thing, I got to stay on that path, but really feeling into what's right and knowing that each piece of what we're doing is part of the experience, is a learning experience. Like nothing that we're doing is for nothing. There's a reason that happened, even if, creating your program isn't like the like main thing. Like I love that you're keeping it smaller, that you're working with 2 clients, and that you're not forcing it into being kind of what we were taught in the program that we were doing, and being this kind of in more like industrial kind of like coaching in a way, you know what I mean? You're keeping it true to like your own nature and what it is you can actually take on energetically and more authentically. I feel like I've been thinking about that as well. Like I would like to begin working with people one-on-one eventually. I'm not sure when that'll happen. I'm kind of just taking things as it goes, but I love like getting the fact to recognize that like I don't think I could work with a bunch of people, honestly. If I want to really truly be present for people, working with them one-on-one, I would like to keep it small as well, and just kind of not have all of our eggs in one basket, right? And kind of diversify. I think that's kind of interesting, and hearing your story with that just really inspires me, because it really feels like that's kind of where I'm going as well. This is always the thing. I kind of want to like touch on almost everything that you said, and I know that I can't do that, and that it doesn't serve a purpose to do that. So I'm just going to trust at this time that that's all I needed to say in response to you. That I really wanted to know you to know that like I also appreciate like our virtual friendship, that I appreciate the posts that you share. I learn a lot through what you share, actually, so thank you for doing that. And as long as you feel inspired to share things on the environment and things that are going on, please continue to do so. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's getting something out of it. And thank you for saying what you said about what you're seeing through my projects. The way that you describe that to me is like truly a gift, because it feels like you're really seeing me, and those are the kinds of like exchanges with people, and like the kinds of connections with people that I want, like people that can really see the work that is being done and taking it to that next level and being able to describe it back to me the way that you did. Like, thank you so much. That is exactly what I'm hoping to do, and hearing it from somebody else just reminds me that I'm on the right path, and that even though like what I'm doing, like you said, isn't necessarily the way that like other people do it or the way we're supposed to be doing things, it is coming across as being really authentic and me, and that is what's most important to me at this point. That is what I want to do, is carve out this space for myself that feels really, really me and really in alignment with what it is that I'm here to do on this earth. So thank you so much again. I look forward to sharing our exchange, for sharing your voice, because I feel like other people can benefit from hearing from your journey, and looking forward to kind of just seeing what the next steps are. I'm sure we'll keep in touch. If ever you need something on your side, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll see what comes next. Thanks, and wishing you all the best.